Buonasera a tutti. Good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana and I would like to welcome back our regular listeners and also welcome any new listeners. Also, be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at Italian Radio Hour and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch up on any past video interviews. Vorrei dare il benvenuto ai nostri ascoltatori da tutto il mondo. Grazie per essere con noi anche oggi, mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio per l'Italia e la cultura italiana. Today, I'm very excited to have with me Giorgio Spanu, who is the co-founder, along with Nancy Olnick, his wife, of Magazzino Italian Art. Magazzino Italian Art is a museum and research center dedicated to advancing scholarship and public appreciation of post-war and contemporary Italian art in the United States. It is located in Cold Springs, New York, in the Hudson Valley. Ma prima, pubblicità. Parli italiano? Do you want to learn, improve, or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit online at www.istitutomondoitaliano.org. Un caffè, per favore. My first cup of coffee sets the tone for my entire day, and I get my coffee at La Prima Espresso. La Prima has been brewing Pittsburgh's best coffee for nearly 35 years. Try any of their in-house roasted varieties of beans from all over the world at home, or come and enjoy an espresso or a cappuccino at any of their locations, where their friendly baristas and familiar faces will make you feel at home. Because a trip to La Prima is like a trip to Italy, only closer to home. Well, I'm very excited to bring Giorgio Spanu on with us today for a journey into the Magazzino Italian Art and the definition of Arte Povera. Welcome to the program, Giorgio. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. Thank you for having me here and sharing my, I would say, journey into the world of Italian art with the residents of Pittsburgh, city that I never had the privilege to visit and that I hope I will be able to visit soon. Thank you for having me here today.
So Giorgio, we always like to establish the direct connection between our guests and Italy. I know that you are a native Italian, and I would almost dare to assume Sardinian by the U at the end of the last name. Am I close enough?
Yes, correct. I am from Sardinia. I was born in Iglesias, in the province of Cagliari, which is the southern tip of Sardinia. It's the minerary region of Sardinia, where many mines exist since the Roman times, and who have been widely developed at the beginning of the 19th century. And in the 20th century was really the peak of the production of especially during the war, First and Second Wars, was the biggest production for the mining sites.
Mm-hmm. So from Sardinia to straight to the United States, or did you live somewhere else, or what brought you to the United States?
I grew up in Sardinia, and I went to school where I attended Liceo Classico in both Cagliari and Oristano, which are two major towns, Cagliari being the capital, and Oristano is also a large city in the island. And after I went to Pisa and attended the University of Pisa, and from Pisa, I came to New York.
Wonderful. At what point of your life did Nancy enter your life? And in a previous interview, or she defined you as a Renaissance man. So it must have been really kind of love at first sight on many different levels. But if I may ask, when did
before coming to New York, once I left Italy, I lived in Paris for a decade. And from Paris, I came to New York. In New York, I had the privilege to be introduced to Nancy, and we immediately fell in love. We had a lot of things in common, but one thing that really was clear from day one was our love for Italy and our love for Italian art.
Mhm.
We together
Mhm.
we together had different ways of collecting. Nancy had started a wonderful collection of pop art and American art,
Mhm.
while my interest was more in, of course, in European art.
Mhm. And so you started then to add pieces to your collection. A trip to your first trip to Paris together. I heard that you were just going from galleries to galleries looking for acquiring material and books and so forth. Is that true?
Yes, well, that was a trip that we did when we acquired the current apartment where we live on it. And we started a collection of Art Deco, French Art Deco, to furnish this apartment. And we didn't know much about Art Deco, especially not about French Art Deco, Jean-Michel Franco, Pierre Charot. So before starting the collection, we started a collection of books to study the movement and to know more about what it was done. We have always done it this way. We first try to learn about the topic, and once we know the topic sufficiently, then we start the collection.
Okay.
But the first collection we started together was not the collection of the Art Deco from Paris, but was a collection, and still is a collection very well known today, of Murano glass. We started with a piece that we acquired at auction house in New York, and then we continued the search and acquired many pieces all through many years in Italy and many other places.
And the pieces are fantastic. I mean, I've never seen, there were some pictures of the pieces that are just wonderful. And then there is also a publication that actually features the collection. Isn't it so?
There are several publications. The first one is Venetian Glass, a publication designed by Massimo Vignelli, and Massimo was also a very dear friend of ours. And the second one is Murano Glass from the Onyx Spanu collection. That is a publication that was created for the US tour of the exhibition. The US tour started in New York City. At the time, the museum was known as the American Craft Museum. And from there went to several other venues all around the United States. And from United States went back to Europe, went to Milano, actually went to Milano the week of September 11, which was a very difficult week to make such fragile collection to travel. But thanks to many persons who understood that the importance of actually continuing to send art, it was Murano Glass from the Onyx Spanu collection was the first art collection to leave New York after September 11. It was the first one to arrive in Milan and was escorted by the Italian doganieri to make sure that it would reach the museum on time for the opening.
Wow, wow, what a story. And also, in addition, you have mentioned Massimo and Lella Vignelli, and just two names, and another couple of geniuses tied by eternal love. And so it's the documentary about their lives is also a good way to get into a little bit of their design and so forth. So you and Nancy obviously fascinated by many things. Architecture was probably also something that made you visit some of the most outstanding ancient and modern examples, going to different places. But Spain played an important role. You met the architect Alberto Campo Baeza there. Can you tell us a little bit about the experience and how eventually, how important that meeting was in the future of Magazzino?
Actually, before telling you about Alberto Campo Paese, I would like to tell you how we met Alberto Campo Paese.
Sure.
Again, we met Alberto Campo Paese thanks to Massimo Vignelli. Massimo was one of the art directors of the glorious Venini glass works in Murano, in Venice. And he was one of his first jobs out of the academy where he graduated in the School of Architecture in Venice. And actually, it was just after that work that Massimo came to United States. So he was the first person that we contacted under the suggestion of David McFadden, who was the curator of the American Craft Museum. McFadden suggested us to meet Massimo because Massimo was the one that he wanted to design the vitrines, the graphics, and the publication for the exhibition that was to take place at the American Craft Museum, which included only glass from our collection. So we went to a met with Massimo and Lela. Lela was not only a partner in the business, but the mother of his kids and his partner in life, very much like Nancy and I. Immediately fell in love with this incredible couple. And we, of course, assigned the job to Massimo to start the design of the graphic. That didn't take him much. He came back with a small maquette, which basically was going to be the future exhibition display that was used in so many museums after that to display our collection. It was quite amazing. We then created the book and we started the tour, which was very successful. So years later, we now in the 2002, 2003, so in the new millennium, the Vignellis have become very close family friends, and very often they spend a weekend in our country house located in Garrison, New York, a few miles from where the museum is today located. Massimo did not like the house we had there. It was an old log cabin built in 1850 with not much of the style that he loved. And it was not that very comfortable. Unfortunately, the renovations that had been done all through the years had never been paid a lot of attention, and they were not done that accurately. So he always used to tell me, you have this beautiful apartment in Italy, you have this beautiful house in New York, and you have this log cabin, which doesn't really represent who you are. And we have in town this architect, Alberto Campo Baeza, that is here to visiting professor from the University of Madrid in Spain, and I would like to bring him over here to give you a few ideas about a new home that you are going to build. I said, Massimo, I'm not interested to build a new house, nor here, nor anywhere. But a few days later, he came over for a weekend and he hands me a book on Alberto Campo Baeza. I open the book and I see there is a beautiful dedication to my dear friend Massimo Vignelli with all my pronunciation, whatever. The phrase was signed with Alberto Campo Baeza. I was shocked. I said, shame on you, you're giving me a book that has been donated to you. I said, no, I'm not donating, I'm lending it to you. I want you to learn more about Alberto, and once you know, and you meet him, and once you finish the building of the house, then you will return the book to me. And this is how I was first introduced to Alberto Campo Baez.
That is so amazing. And then Alberto was it's almost famous. So it's also famous for his how exquisitely he illuminates and the use of glass and so forth. An amazing structure. I have seen some pictures of it.
It's the use of light that makes Alberto one of the greatest architects of our times. It's the way he uses light. Light is his architecture, and includes light in his architecture. As a matter of fact, we're just in process of building an addendum to Magazzino, is a pavilion where a cube that is part of the pavilion is designed by Alberto Campo Baeza, where the light plays a big role.
A big role. So we're almost getting to Magazzino, but not yet. You and Nancy moved to Rome for about a year or two with your daughter Stella, and that's where it looks like there was maybe more of an exposure to the Arte Povera. And so one element, also some of the installations that is also their dimension. So before we get to talk about Magazzino, maybe it will be worth to explain what is Arte Povera in art, because often we hear Cucina Povera, and it speaks, and sometimes it gets also mistranslated as for instance, the cuisine of the poor person versus the ingenuity, l'arte dell'arrangiarsi. But we're talking about food. We're talking now about art, and it looks like it has also a specific time frame. But what is the concept of Arte Povera?
Before even saying anything about Arte Povera, I would like to let the listeners and the viewers know more about how I get to Arte Povera myself, which is more important than any, because otherwise it would not be clear. When we met, Nancy and I, start going back to Italy and to Europe a few times a year. Usually we used to take at least 4 trips, one in the fall, one in winter, one in spring, and one in summer. And every trip was always started either in Milan, in Rome, or in Paris. Those were the 3 towns where we usually landed. Most often, of course, we landed in Rome. And our love affair with Rome started immediately at the beginning of the 1990s. We met a young art dealer by the name of Saulo Bocchi, who unfortunately is no longer with us. And we asked him a very simple question. We would be interested to get to know more about contemporary art, Italian contemporary art. We would like to know more about the contemporary artists practicing today in Italy. And Saulo was very simply and very, he gave us an answer without giving us one. He basically said to us, if you want to know more, go to this museum, go to Torino and go to Castello di Rivoli. Castello di Rivoli, I never heard about a museum. Castello di Rivoli, and what about Torino? Torino is an industrial town. I know they have a wonderful Egyptian museum, but I was not aware of this contemporary museum. He said, please go there, spend the weekend. There is an exhibition now there, curated by this Dutch curator. And once you see the exhibition, you tell me which ones are the works that you like the most. and we go from there. Very challenging, but very intriguing. So we book a train. Italy has wonderful trains, very comfortable trains. And from Rome, we went to Torino. From Torino, we rent a car and we went to Castello del Rivoli. Castello del Rivoli not only had a wonderful exhibition, but he also had an incredible restaurant. The food was fantastic. But of course, what attracted us was this exhibition on Arte Povera. We had never heard the word Arte Povera before. We had never known anything about the movement, about the artists, and about the founder of the movement, Germano Celante. So we were like two kids in Disney World. We really loved it. We went back to Rome and said to our friend Sauro, when he asked us this question, so what did you like? We said to him, we liked everything. We liked all of them. There is no one that we like more than the other. I think this movement is absolutely incredible. We want to know more. So he introduced us to another gallerist in Rome, Mario Pieroni, and we started the acquisitions of pieces of Arte Povera. This is how we started. We were at the very beginning of the 1990s. This was before our daughter Stella was born in 94. And we continued accumulating more and more of these works. Few years later, once Stella was born and attended the Italian school, Guglielmo Marconi in New York, we felt the need to bring her for a year in Italy, where we could learn more about Italian culture and make her own Italian a better Italian. In that year, of course, we did not work. We took care of Stella, and we took care of our knowing more about not only Arte Povera, but Italian art to go.
Wow. And then with the process of acquisition of pieces, at some point, when did you and Nancy develop the idea of creating a public space? Because one of the strongest philosophies that I perceive from Magazzino is that has to be for the public. And also there is a constant dialogue between the pieces, the art, and the public itself. So at what point you and Nancy kind of sat at the table and say, let's create this and then once it you have I will show then a short video about what Magazzino is all about.
First, before even answering to the question, I need to express how much joy both Nancy and I took from sharing our first collection, which was the collection of Murano glass, with the public. Mm-hmm. We not even realized we had a collection of anything. We initially were contacted by Phyllis Lambert, who is the founder of the CCA, the Canadian Centre for Architecture in Montreal, Canada, to lend about 58 works of Carlos Carpa, which are part of the Murano glass collection, to do an exhibition at the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Montreal. We said, we don't have a collection. And she says, no, I think you do. I saw some of your art, of your glass work on loan in a museum in Brescia, where there was an exhibition of Carlos Carpa, and the most gorgeous pieces in the collection were your pieces. I would like to lend those, borrow the pieces, if you could lend it to us for an exhibition in Montreal while I'm opening the CCA. We said, wow. if you think we have a collection, we're going to send you the works. And so we did. The work of Carlos Carpa went to Montreal. The exhibition was up for a month, and in 1 month they had over 18,000 visitors, which was huge for a museum exhibiting Murano glass in Montreal in April. Subsequent to this, one of Nancy's best friends from high school, the director of the American Craft Museum, asked Nancy if she would lend the entire collection of Murano glass for the exhibition to be curated by David McFadden at the Craft Museum. We said, wow, if you think, so many people now think that we have a collection. Now, the joy of sharing this with the public in Montreal was huge. We really loved sharing this, and we realized that that was what was the whole collecting about, was about being able to share with others that they didn't neither had the fortune to own those pieces or even being aware of the existence. So sharing was born together with putting the collection on view, first at the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Montreal, then at the Craft Museum in New York, and the other museums that follow. So we have learned that the pleasure of sharing is much higher than the pleasure of possessing this art. That possessing was really secondary, and the most important thing was really studying the subject and being able to share with others that have the same interest in knowing more, to enrich the life of somebody the same way the collection has enriched Nancy and my life. That is what we understood right away. So before even Magazzino was born, we understood how important was the sharing of the artwork that we were collecting. This is why we originally creating the art program, the only Spanu art program that brought to United States 10 contemporary artists to develop site-specific artwork for the park of our home in Garrison, New York. And there again, sharing the experience, it was wonderful, bringing these young artists all in more or less mid-career, some younger than others, and sharing their love for what they were doing, first with us, and then ourselves sharing it with our friends, with a small event that we would do every year in June, where at the same time we would also present the artist for the year after. We only decided to do one artist per year because we really wanted to devote a lot of our time to these artists and to really understand what the research was all about. That was our main concern. And being able to not only have them bringing the Italian art to the Hudson Valley, but also to speak about the Hudson Valley in Italy once they would go back. It was the concept of never sending the Elevero empty, to always sending with a passenger on board.
I love that.
And that is what we did. And it was quite a reward, I have to say. Until the day we realized that this is after another request from the Italian Cultural Institute in London. There was an exhibition of Arte Povera that was taking place at the Tate Gallery, and the director of the Italian Cultural Institute in London asked us if we would lend our collection for the exhibition. We said, what collection? Again, we were at the time putting the warehousing basically the artwork in London. And for some reason, one of the person working in the warehouse knew this gentleman. And also our friend and inspiration to all this, Sauro Bocchi. Sauro was good friends to this director, and he had told him that most of our Arte Povera works that we had purchased during the 10 years before, basically, were still in London, that we had not yet moved them to the United States. Mm-hmm. We were waiting to have a container, basically, and put everything in a container that would have reduced the cost of bringing the works to the United States. We landed the pieces to the Cultural Institute, and it was a huge success. It was at the same time that the exhibition was taking place at the Tate, and the winter after, we were asked by a museum in East Germany. East Germany now was no longer East Germany, it was part of Germany. And this wonderful exhibition on Arte Povera was taking place, and they asked us for the collection. During that exhibition, we went to visit the museum in Magdeburg, former communist country, this great town, industrial town. But the most beautiful thing in this town was this exhibition. We were blown away. And this is where, at that point, we realized that it was really important for us to do what we did with Murano Glass, to share our Arte Povera collection. Then we realized we had a collection with the local community in Cold Spring. Mm-hmm. Cold Spring has given a lot to us. We raised 3 children. We have had this wonderful country house. I have learned how to garden, to run a small farm with livestock and little animals. So for me, Cold Spring represents really my home in America. So it was very important that I would share this with the local community. So we started looking for an appropriate building. Cyberchron was available for sale. We put an offer. Our offer was not accepted, unfortunately. So we started looking around in neighboring towns, especially Beacon. Beacon had just started the adventure with the Dia Foundation. So we thought that Beacon would be, but we said, no, we want the museum to be in Philipstown. Philipstown is the municipality that encompasses both Cold Spring and Garrison. And also Nelsonville is a municipality that includes these 3 little villages, Cold Spring being the more important, the biggest in population. We said, no, we want to go back. Let's go back to the original seller of the space who had not been able to sell. And we said to him again, this is our offer. Would you be still interested? And at that point, he said yes. He said yes. We purchased the building, and now we needed to renovate the building and bring the art. So we said, just let's paint it in white, make it very simple, and let's use the architect that was the project manager for the building of our house by Alberto Campobaeza in Garrison. His name is Miguel Quismondo. Miguel is not only a very talented architect, but he is also very ambitious. And together with the plan of painting the building, he also proposed and offered to build an addendum concrete, which would create an internal piazza that would permit us to do our cinema in piazza in summer, and etc., etc. This is how this space was born. This is how the project of Magazzino was created, thanks to the talent of Miguel Quismondo, the wisdom of Nancy, which immediately accepted the project. Me, I was very
reluctant.
because the dollar sign of building such a building. And I said, what are we going to do with all this? I mean, what we don't really need. We're only going to have 3 friends a week coming to see the collection. You know, this
and
is.
now we're talking about over 50,000.
Now we have much more people coming. So at the beginning, I wasn't that sure that people would be interested in art. So all this said, now I'm going to speak more about what Arte Povera is exactly.
Yes, and let's enjoy a little video that is going to take us through, you know, the mission of the Magazzino, so that also we can add a little visual to what you have shared with us so far. So just 1 second, I'm going to try to get the technology to be our ally and enjoy a minute or so.
Magazzino Italian Art is a museum and research center located in Cold Spring, New York, in the heart of the Hudson Valley, just an hour away from New York City. Our mission is to showcase and increase research on Italian post-war and contemporary art. Magazzino was founded by Nancy Olnick and Giorgio Spanu in June 2017. The fall of 2018, Magazzino Italian Art became a foundation, and we are a 501c3. We are a private operating foundation that really focuses its energy in supporting and showcasing Italian art from the mid-50s until today.
One thing Giorgio and I have really learned from this experience is how important sharing with the community, with the public. And it's become much more important than collecting just for collecting's sake. So when Magazzino became a foundation, we wanted to be something to leave as a legacy that will continue after us. We have donated the land, the building, and a significant part of the collection, so Magazzino will remain for future generations, because that is really what has become the most important aspect to us.
So this is what also Magazzino is something that will tie and wants to tie the local community with the communities in Italy, to bring happiness, educate, share what our artists do with the local artists here, and make sure always that Magazzino is there to welcome warmly the local community and whoever wants to share the passion for art.
Since its opening in June 2017, we hosted over 50,000 visitors, and we were able to produce and realize a number of exhibitions and events of Italian artists, American artists that are reflecting on their links to Italian culture, as well as a number of programs from lecture series to film screenings to concerts. We were able to offer scholarships to local students. As well, we do offer a fellowship to scholars on Italian art internationally. Looking at the future, we're building a new pavilion, the Robert Olnick Pavilion, which will host more temporary exhibitions, a design gallery, a cafe with a shop, and finally an education department that will help us to really have programming all year round. It's our mission to really make Magazzino a place that is open, that is friendly, that is welcoming to everyone, and to inspire a new generation of art lovers throughout.
Beautiful visual to accompany the message that you in the interview and Nancy also expressed in the video. And actually there was one moment of the video where I actually felt transported to a fellow Sardinian museum, the Nivola Museum. somehow there were a few seconds where I felt, and I think you had an exhibit about him.
Costantino Nivola.
Oh, pardon me for the.
Is a Sardinian artist,
Mhm.
but we didn't do an exhibition at Magazzino because he's Sardinian like me, but because he's a wonderful artist and he's a very important artist that invented the sand casting. Costantino Nivola came to America to save his wife from the persecution of the racial laws in Italy. She was from Jewish origins, so they were forced to leave Italy, and from Italy they came to New York, where in New York Costantino Nivola became the art director of the Olivetti exhibition space on Fifth Avenue. And while living his first years in New York, he met with Le Corbusier, which he had a long-standing love affair, and rented a house in the Springs in Long Island, where he became friend to all the group of American artists, including Jackson Pollock, de Kooning, and all the others that they were at the time operating out of studios there in Long Island. While in Long Island, he, poor artist, interested to the sculpture, could not afford the price of marble, but his house was right on the beach, so he had a valuable lot of sand. And by using his old board, he was free to make. So he was able to, by using the sand, invented this technique that is known as the sand casting. And did a lot of sculpture all through public buildings in New York State, schools, and other governmental building that you can find in both New York City and the major cities all around the states. But he also went in other states outside New York State, and I fell in love with his work. And even though we had no works of Costantino Nivola in our collection, we had none, we had zero. It was the very first exhibition that we made it without having the work coming out of our own collection. It was something totally new for us. But the family was very receptive, and we were able to borrow works from the institutions in Sardinia, including the Museo Nivola in Oran, his hometown, and many other collectors here in New York and Massachusetts. And we were able to do a publication that today exists, that is actually you can see online on our website. And if you come to visit Magazzino soon, we will have our book shop open, and you also want to be able to acquire the publications, because we think that that is something that we want also share. Of course, we can afford it to donate these publications to everyone. We donated it to universities, to research centers, to the researchers themselves that they come to work at Magazzino, but we cannot give a book, obviously, to every visitor that comes in. But if anyone is interested to acquire our publications, soon they will be available on our museum shop.
Wonderful. So before this little detour to talk about Nivola, we were getting into talk more about Arte Povera, and also some of the activities and presentations that occur regularly at Magazzino. I see Dr. Laura Petikan, being a regular contributor as an art historian, a curator, and author herself. So yes, let's dive in a little bit into the Arte Povera, some of the programs that have either they're coming up or just concluded. And then we will invite everyone to come and visit, because it is indeed a resource that is one of a kind. But I'm going to leave it up to, I'm going to pass the microphone to you, so to speak.
So Arte Povera is two words that have been used for the first time by Germano Celante. Germano Celante was the theoretician behind the movement, born in Genova. Unfortunately, Germano left us during COVID. Nancy and I were probably among the last persons to see Germano the evening that he left to Milan, where upon his arrival, unfortunately, was hospitalized in the hospital in Milan and never came out of that hospital. So it was very sad for us, because 2 weeks later, Germano was to present Nancy and I live to the Association of the American Appraisers in New York City. So it was really, really sad. And next week, we are going to dedicate our center, our educational center, to Germano Celante, which is a research center and educational center dedicated to Italian art. So he highly deserves this, because he has always advised us. He has never asked us for any compensation of any sort. He was very happy that the Arte Povera was finally having a home in the United States. Mm-hmm. So he created these two words in the same way, and inspired by this theater, group of theater in Poland in the 1960s that had done representations without having too many costumes, with the exfoliation, basically, of all those elements that sometimes makes theater too theatrical, and where the theater gets much more attention with the acting of the actors, and not with whatever surrounds the acting itself. So in the same way, Arte Povera is that art that comes from nature. Nature is an inspiration, and the works don't need to be in a frame to be displayed. You can display a piece of marble before it even becomes a sculpture, and is a sculpture itself. That is what Arte Povera is all about, is not including the unnecessary. Whatever is not necessary doesn't need to be there. It is a completely new way of thinking. It's not about objet trouvé. It's not about Dadaism. It's not about, even though were movements that were there born before. Arte Povera is about being able to connect life and nature and art, and put these together and create live artwork. Mario Merz, who was one of the group, who was part of this group, used, for example, the Fibonacci sequence, the mathematical Fibonacci sequence that was founded by this Benedictine monk in the 1200s, I believe, or 12 or 1300s. I don't remember exactly, but what I know exactly is that what inspired him to find the sequence was watching the birth rate of rabbits, and find out that there was a very precise sequence in nature, also by looking at sunflower, where all the seeds were represented in a very precise way. So in the same way, Mario Merz inspired himself from nature when he does the herbario with all the plants from New Zealand, which we have in the collection today, or where he does all the Fibonacci sequence numbers that you can see with the deer, the head of a deer, in one of the galleries at Magazzino today. And you also can see very clearly with the work of Giuseppe Pennone and his bringing the core of a tree, the heart of a tree. Pennone has never used a live tree to do his sculpture. He has always carved trees that were found already dead in the forest. But he was able to show to the viewer the very art, the very inside of a tree, how the architecture of the tree is composed, which is a beautiful thing, and how to include the growth of a tree with an element, either in bronze or a stone, that it can be put together in a growth with a tree. So all these elements are what have fascinated this group, or Pierpaolo Cazzolari and the use of ice, the use of ice to generate a sculpture, or the alchemy of Zorio, and that there is alchemy in everyone's life, or Paolini and his poetry, and is going back to the classicism of Italian art, and also these cultural works of both Roman and Greek periods, and work together with that. Each one of them have included these values into their research. Giano Fabio, all, and Anselmo, Giovanni Anselmo, that guides us with Direzione, or Il Blu Oltremare, the views, that how it would display what you can see with your eyes and above the horizon line. What is that blue that you see in front? This is the sky. What is that definition? That including nature into this. This is what Arte Povera is. And this is what is not actually exfoliating anything, is enriching something. I would, if I have to find a definition, I would call it a rich art. Not art for the rich, but a rich art that enriches people's soul. That is what Arte Povera for me is. It is something that is capable to enrich your everyday life. And this is what we want to do when we have a visitor coming to Magazzino. This is why we have included donkeys in our grounds, because grounds and donkeys are part of everyday life. So when you go and you admire these wonderful little animals that they want to interact with you, you're also creating a piece of art, a live piece of art. That is part of that Arte Povera concept that Germano cherished. And one of the also major players in the group of Arte Povera that I'm leaving last but not least is Michelangelo Pistoletto. Michelangelo originally created for us Stracci Italiani, which is an Italian flag.
And that is indeed the image that drew me to find out more about Magazzino Italian Art. And this is the piece you were just mentioning, Stracci.
Michelangelo originally created his work for the Spanu art program. I had asked several artists, and he's the one who responded to us with this work to create a sculpture, a piece of art that would serve as a beacon, as a direction to the young artists coming to develop the Spanu art program artwork. So this had to be an inspiration to them. And it becomes such a great inspiration to us that when we opened Magazzino, Nancy decided that the Stracci Italiani had no longer a reason to be part of our residence, but it had to be installed permanently for the viewers to visit Magazzino in the lobby of the museum, where it still stands today and where I hope it will stand for many years to come. And Michelangelo has created many moments of magic for Magazzino. But one thing above all is the performance that he created by rolling a newspaper sphere, composed with all the newspapers that had for the first time talked about Magazzino: the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Financial Times, the two local PCNR and the Current, which are the two newspapers of Philipstown, etc., etc. He created a sphere that he had he recreated, actually, re-enhanced something that he had originally done in Torino at the end of the 1960s to create awareness that the workers of Fiat and all the metal workers in town had wages that they were under the wages that they deserved. And this is another something very important to say, that all of these artists were all very highly politically engaged, and they were all with the workers, the protecting the less richer, to protect it and share their art with the people. And that is another aspect that fascinated us. And this performance that Michelangelo did was absolutely incredible, followed after by another performance by Marinella Senatore, who did another performance in Cold Spring with coinvolgendo, as we say in Italian, the entire community. Michelangelo did something very generous at the end of this performance. He donated the sphere to Magazzino. You have to know that Sfera has been created for many other events, including the additional work by IMK at the Louvre in Paris. But the Sfera was always sold at auction. The one of Magazzino was donated by Michelangelo to the local community of the Hudson Valley and to the village of Cold Spring, and is today on view at Magazzino, where it will remain forever. Michelangelo was not only a friend, was a generous friend, and still is a big inspiration to us. And we recently created a sculpture in his honor to follow the Terzo Paradiso. Magazzino is an ambassador of Terzo Paradiso, and if you want to know more, just to Google Terzo Paradiso, and you will find what is all about. And we will be presenting this sculpture soon. We just finished to put it together. It's actually composed of stones, rocks that are coming from the excavation of the foundation of the Robert Olnik Pavilion, which is the addition to Magazzino. So these rocks came from there, came from the site, came from the earth, and we have done nothing to the rocks but aligned them in this almost like number 8 sign, that is the infinity sign that Michelangelo has created for Terzo Paradiso. And this is what we want the visitors to share.
Fantastic. I could not have hoped for a better introduction to Magazzino, which has made my desire to come and visit, and maybe have the privilege to meet you and Nancy in person. because again, the mission, the fact of the privilege and the pleasure that you have communicating and about sharing the art and everything that has been part of you and Nancy's life with everyone, and for the many, many, many years to come for everyone, is indeed incommiabile. And within as I said, with that, unfortunately, our time together is up, and Il Big Ben ha detto stop, and it's time for us to say arrivederci and alla prossima. We want to, please.
Just one last word I want to say. First, I want to thank you. And I want to thank you, everyone who is listening to this long talk. I hope I was capable to convey what Magazzino is all about. And I just want to take this moment to thank everyone who has visited Magazzino, and to all those that lately have joined our membership. We very recently started a membership, which is available online on the site of Magazzino. We need help. We need help from everyone who can give, and anything that can be given to Magazzino is important. It is very important for the programming. We can no longer do by ourselves. What is started with something that I thought I would share with a couple of friends is becoming much more important, and that unfortunately this important has a cost, and this cost we can no longer Nancy and I do by ourselves. So we need whatever help we can get, and hopefully we can get some friends in Pittsburgh as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. And to become a member, you can visit the site at www.magazzino.art. And again, also engage with the collections. And also, I believe there is a podcast. It's almost like a walking tour of the Magazzino, and then, as I said, go and visit, but mainly support what has been, again, the act of generosity first, but now it's art for all of us. So it is absolutely right that we all contribute to the mission. So we want to thank everyone for tuning in into the program. And if you have any questions or comments, or if you have any topics you would like us to address, please contact us at theitalianradiohour@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And remember, if you or any of your family and friends have missed a prior episode or would like to listen to this episode again, please visit our website at www.istitutomondoitaliano.org and click on the Italian Radio Hour tab. You can also subscribe to the Italian Radio Hour on YouTube or where you catch your favorite podcasts. Again, I would like to profusely thank Giorgio Spanu for all of his time and his mission. Our sponsors, Istituto Mondo Italiano, La Prima Espresso, and Alla Boara for the music. Until next time, alla prossima. Ciao, ciao.
Arrivederci.